Hey everyone, Wookie Builds back with another LEGO Transformer video, and I hope you'll stick with me a little longer today. I'm transforming Menasor. The Stunticon team is my first combiner team that I'm really satisfied with. I've tried to make Devastator a few times, and they were not especially successful. Real happy with how this guy turned out though. Let's go ahead and jump on in. I'm going to go ahead and show them off kind of in the order that I built them. Start with dead end here. So he's got the little axe. I try with all my robots to give them some way to have the weapons attach in vehicle mode maybe. The design for the limbs on the scramble style combiners has to be fairly repeatable. You're almost kind of like designing a template as much as you're making a single robot. So I started with this guy and really focused. When I started, I thought that I wouldn't be able to do the whole head connector thing, but I said, let's give it a try. And so I put some time into it, and I used some Technic bars in there. And the trick is that I'm not just like sticking this end into an arm to make it work or whatever. The trick is this little block here, brick that has a little stud in it, so that I can kind of like snug stuff down. Anyway, that's enough about that. Oops. Popped his little head out. As you can see, the build's fairly simple here, because there's not a whole lot of room to work. Trying to keep it real compact and hold weight really well, basically, and just capture kind of the scramble style characters, which were all pretty simplistic. So here's Dead End, and like I said, I use this as basically a template. So the other four will be pretty similar. So I'll move them a little more quickly. Here's Breakdown. The other melee holds the other melee weapon. So another thing you'll see as we go through this is that I was real focused on trying to just minimize extra add-on parts. The best combiners out there I've seen use like lots of add-on parts, which is no knock to them or anything. All that weight, it's really hard to hold, which is part of why I went a little smaller with my team, so that I could do it without add-ons. Really just hoping to kind of like capture, the ease with which they just spring into combiner mode in the comics and the cartoons. They aren't carrying around a whole bunch of extra gear. They just say, let's form Menasor, and then they do it, So here's Breakdown. Again, basically the same design, just with different colors. And I did make sure to actually build something a little different and unique for each of them, so they all worked at least a little bit differently. And with Breakdown, this hood is engineered differently to get more of the Lamborghini shape than the other ones. So anyway, there's Breakdown. Next up is Wild Rider, we'll say, who is also pretty much just a repaint to the other guys. This introduces the first hand, so this is right now it's a cannon, it's a machine gun or whatever. Get him going real quick, since he is exactly dead end with Breakdown's hood. But he works a little differently, and he doesn't have a spoiler like the others. Curved is just a little bit different, contoured a little bit different. There's Wild Rider, who has, I think, the worst name of the bunch. All the rest are kind of like really sweet names. Breakdown, Dead End, Drag Strip, less so. Oh yeah, here's his gun. The hands, you gotta futz with them a little bit, but they, turn into reasonably convincing, like, submachine guns or something like that. Anyway. Last one before we get to Motormaster, last one of the limbs. This is Drag Strip, who was really fun to build because, I talked about the others all being kind of templated. Drag Strip had to like accomplish the same things, but the way the character works, I kind of basically had to like do the same design but upside down, because with all the rest, the chest under here is under the carriage or under the car, whereas with this guy, the top of the car is actually the chest, is actually what's forward on the robot. So I had to like do the same design but reverse it basically. So his arms or legs therefore work differently. Flip around and pop out. Flip that around and pop it out. And then just fold that down. And I didn't really mention it, but all these, this is that pin. It's got friction on one side and axle on the other. So in all these cases, what I've been doing is just sliding the arm out a little bit on that pin, so there's just a little bit of clearance without having to, over-engineer the whole thing or anything. Flip his little hands out, and then you actually have to get his head out the back and turn it around, and then come back the other way, and flip his little hood down. And then once again, he can, carry the gun just like the other ones. So there's all the limbs, and they're basically interchangeable. Let's bring on Motormaster. Here he is. A lot more work and engineering and thought kind of has to go into the torso. They have to hold a lot of weight. So I kept focused on keeping this guy kind of compact and tight. I used these the big click joints to hold all the weight in the legs. This right here is just a real solid brick, but it basically means that the little truck that makes his feet is pretty sturdy. And we'll go ahead and, he rolls really good. I think he looks really good. We'll go ahead and transform him. He's just going to flip up here. And move the camera up for the rest of this now. We're going to take and fold his arms out here. And then his torso there is one of those click joints, and it kind of flexes a little bit. Just pop his head up. Maybe that should be last, the big reveal or whatever. But these panels here fold up and kind of just cover that exposed section of brick, and you'll see what that exposed section of brick is about later on. That's where the guys connect in, the arms, when he's Menasor. Just turn this around. These arms are hollow. I don't usually build that way. In this instance, I had to really try and keep weight low, and since I'm not using any add-on pieces, the arms kind of will have to work as deco, double as deco, which is why they needed to be light and hollow, which you'll see when we transform him. And then his legs aren't perfect, these are just on pins, and therefore, he's fine as Motormaster. The weight's a little heavy once he's got everything going, and the legs are a little sloppy. Usually I like to cover this type of stuff, but I need clearance for everything, need to minimize weight, this all needs to work, and it needs to hold the robot up. So as always, you got to figure out where you're going to compromise. So there's the team. That's the Stunticons. I'm sure you all are ready, after 8 minutes of me yammering about the robots, to get into Menasor. So let's do it. I'm going to prep the limbs first. I've been using Dead End and Wild Ride as the legs. Not really sure why. I think technically Breakdown is supposed to be a leg. Oh, I know why. It's because the weapons... Wild Rider has this little thing here that lets the machine gun peg into it when he's in a car mode, and so therefore if he's holding the hand, it kind of made sense to make him a hand. Some fans pointed out I think that Breakdown is supposed to be an arm, or a leg rather. In my mind, these were all Scramble Cities style anyway. That was the whole gimmick, is that they're all interchangeable. You could mix and match them together, or reconfigure them in any order. With your, if you just had one team or whatever, but even if you had other teams, you could combine them, right? Menasor's legs could work on Superion, could work on, with the Technobots, could work with the, whichever other one I'm forgetting, the Horrorcons and whatnot, they all use the same tech. So these guys, for the legs, we're just going to convert them straight up back into car mode. They will just be kind of inanimate bricks that hold a lot of weight. Trying to transform them and chat at you guys at the same time can be challenging. Sometimes I lose track of what I'm doing. Alright. Get those going. And so those are prepped. The arms, drag strip, we're going to once again turn his face in so it's not pointing out. And just sort of tuck. So we'll fix the hands here, tuck the shoulders in. When he his little feet here will attach to the hand to hold him in. So you actually, with him, have to turn it around so that they face down, which is not the very best thing as an arm. I wish this surface was up, but whatever. And then I've been taking the arm or the wheels here and twisting them up. It just sort of is a neat textural element, and it sort of helps to hide that there's sort of just a gap here with his legs. And then again, here's that gun that he was holding earlier. He was holding it there, but now it just turns into a big gnarly hand and clips or attaches to his feet on these little studs here. So there's that arm. And get his little connector rod going. And then breakdown will be the other one. Let's again start by just kind of getting him back towards his car mode. And then we'll just, oops, spoiler, it's a little delicate. We'll keep his feet down, and once again those little studs will peg into his hand. And then Motormaster carries just, Menasor's gun, and I imagine it is like this giant like bazooka thing that's like really big and a pain for Motormaster to lug around. So no transformation are needed, anything needed for Menasor's gun. Breakdown's axe and Dead End's sword will come together to be this big gnarly monster sword. It doesn't quite look like the toy, but it's fun, and it makes melee weapons for them, and it uses some of these big orange sweet pieces I've got. So alright, lastly we will convert Motormaster and then throw it all together. Your patience will be rewarded eventually. I'm going to go ahead and do it now, since later it'll be a little bit trickier. Again, I try to minimize pieces, so his head here, I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. I'm going to, didn't want to have a little add-on head, so I actually just made his head slightly transformable. It's not a dramatic effect, but it kind of makes it a little more gaunt, like feral, and then allows these little side flaps to come up and be kind of Menasor's horns or whatever. So overall, he goes from just kind of a little bit of a dough face, looking like he's dour, to a little more menacing and animal-like, and it adds a little bit of height. I'm going to take his arms, and one of these hands we're going to slide down and kind of push him in. And then we'll leave it where it's at, or get it actually back up. And those will kind of intersect like that. And you can see in here there's this little robot arm that will come across, and join them. There goes his head. So now his arms become Menasor's kind of chest armor, which is sweet. I think, in the original, it didn't really make sense that there's like a little plastic car that's not a robot that you slap onto his chest. I don't know. You've got all this surface area for this semi-truck. Why not, use it? So that's what I did with mine. So there he's ready to standing, and then his legs, I knocked a little piece off there. His legs will just go like that. And I apologize, it's going to be hard for me to do this well on camera. But anyway, let's get going. Where's his head again? Again, I mentioned the balance isn't great. If I rebuilt him, I would rethink this hip connection so he doesn't do that. Oh yeah, and you actually want to give it a slight bend here. It kind of just helps the weight stay where it needs to. And then the last thing is these flaps come up, and then the arms will go in there. So let's get them going. I don't actually use the head connector for the legs. Instead, I designed them all so that their hood has this strip here that can take studs into it. So you just put that in, and you put it a little offset. Oops. You put it a little offset so that he has clearance, and you can just a little bit open up his stance. And then same thing with Wild Rider. Just take it, put those studs in there, a little offset, And bada boom, there he is. He's standing. And now we look up, and we'll take this little peg here, get it so the stud is down and his face panel is up. And right here there are, bricks so that you can peg that in. And the whole point here is that the force, the weight, isn't all just like on one piece. It's distributed across the bar. So we use this little peg or this little stud to secure it, but then we wrap around it so that all the weight is kind of just being held snugly in place from all sides. If he wants to behave. Alright, one more time over here, same thing, we're going to break down his little head down and get the stud on that brick down and his little face up. And we're going to go over here and click that down. It's not hard, it's just trying to do it at an angle that you guys can see how it works. Sorry for my big ugly hands in the way. Let's hold that little flap down, and once again, I don't actually have this much trouble with his head. It's just harder on camera to, keep in mind how the audience is seeing it while seeing the camera while handling this big guy. So there he is! It's Menasor! I think he's pretty menacing. Again, his balance ain't perfect. I gotta actually set him up a little bit, and I don't love that. I generally, if they don't have balance, they're actually not done. So this guy's not perfect, and there's definitely probably a V2 in the future where his hips are better engineered and whatnot. But anyway, he looks great, and I'm really happy with how he turned out. With regards to his weapons, the big gun for Motormaster just has this little clip here, so you can just clip it into the little handle there that makes up his hands that his fingers are coming out of. And you can get him to hold the weight of the gun, but honestly, it's hard. Man, this stuff did not remember being as fiddly before. Been a while since I played with him. I'm out of practice. I feel sometimes like people critique how delicate these guys are, and I try my best to make them really sturdy, and honestly the answer is even when they are sturdy, you kind of got to know how to play with them. You got to kind of practice a little bit, just so you don't put torque in the wrong places, pull off panels that are otherwise kind of secure. Will take a little jostling, but just won't take too much pressure, And then the sword here, I maybe could have thought of a better way to do this, but I just use a little robot arm bar there, and just slide it down to where it needs to be. And then yeah, he doesn't quite hold the weight of these weapons really well. Something to think about if I make a V2 at some future point. Come on, man, work with me here. Alright. There he is. Ah! Well, you bared with me this long. Give me one more minute. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and for following. I recently hit 4,000 followers on Instagram. I'm really, really proud, really happy with that. Thank you, everyone, for your support, for your interest in my work. This is Menasor. He's great. He's the first combiner I've made. I'm real happy with him. I gotta tell you guys, he's just a warm-up. He's just practice. I built him to try and work out the kinks so that when I start working for real on Devastator, I can skip a lot of the learning curve and just make him good right out of the gate. So call that a teaser. Stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in as ever. Wookie Builds out.